All right, Donald Trump is transforming the Oval Office into a reality TV spectacle and basically making every bilateral meeting a chaotic one. And it is raising some serious questions about whether the administration is still able to actually function on the world stage. On Wednesday, Trump hosted South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in the Oval Office on live TV in front of the entire world. And you know what he did? He hijacked the moment by accusing him of ignoring, quote, the white genocide against South African farmers. So, quick fact check for you. There is absolutely no white genocide against white South African farmers. But again, as we know, Trump has never been one to let the truth get in the way of a little drama. Joining us now is Yinka Adegoke, editor for Semafor Africa, and Maya Wiley, civil rights attorney, former assistant U.S. attorney, and president of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. So, you know, there's so much to unpack here, but I just want to get your thoughts, Yinka, if I can, about what we saw happen in the Oval Office and the broader story that has been brewing now for some months with this administration, all of its MAGA acolytes, slowly trying to put into the national discourse that there is a white genocide against South African farmers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no other word for it but embarrassment. Embarrassment for the United States, embarrassment for the White House, embarrassment for the Oval Office and what it represents. There's been this issue with South Africa that actually goes beyond just the Trump administration. It goes back a couple of administrations where there have been some tensions where, given South Africa's unique history with apartheid and coming out of that, they have very strong principles, if you like, about certain issues, be it Palestine, be it Israel, all these, that has caused a lot of tension and, you know, sticking with the partners who helped them during the apartheid years, including the USSR, i.e. Russia today. And this has caused a lot of tension with any administration, not just this one. But it would seem that with Elon Musk, because he has particular concerns, which really are more about his business interests, particularly with Starlink, and not being able to go in there and just open shop, he started to, you know, put it out there on social media. There are all these things going on. This stuff has been out there for years now. It's been debunked. It's complete nonsense. Farmers aren't being killed. There's a lot of violence in South Africa, as the president himself said, President Ramaphosa said. But this idea that white farmers are being targeted, completely untrue. But Musk was behind it. And the most interesting thing I noticed in that whole farcical exchange on the other day was that Elon Musk never said a word. He kept totally quiet.
It's probably because he never thought it was going to get to this moment, right?
He probably never thought he was going to get to this thing.
He never thought he was going to be standing in the White House. He kept on staring, like keeping. And at one point, Trump tried to bring him in and said, you know, Elon doesn't really want to talk about this. You know, Trump always, you know, we've watched him for a few years now. He always kind of lets slip what he's really thinking, which is really like, hey, we should have, you know, Elon should say something. And Elon was like, I don't want any part of this.
I think it's really important, and you, of course, touched on this, to just completely fact check the sort of central image that people have seen come out of this meeting over the last several days. Trump held up a photo of what he said were dead white farmers from South Africa. And Reuters found, contrary to Trump's claims, no bodies were ever buried along that road. And the white crosses seen there, the crosses didn't represent a specific number of farm murder victims. They were a symbolic tribute to a single murdered couple. And then also the Reuters found the image is from the Congo.
It was from the Congo. And it's really embarrassing because I think it was from like 2020, some sort of video they had done during the COVID period. And you could literally see people in their Hamzat suits and what have you.
Yeah.
It was obvious to anyone who actually took a few seconds to look at this.
So Maya, do you think they really do believe this? Or do you think, you know, they're using it for
I don't think it
purpose?
matters. And I think this is more than embarrassment. I think we have to go back to what's the purpose of the propaganda. Certainly, there are white extremists in South Africa who have been using disinformation about white farmer genocide to drive their white supremacist agenda in South Africa. We have white supremacists here in the United States. They have been also repeating the white supremacists in South Africa's claim of genocide. So why would the Trump administration, without sufficient fact-checking, elevate white supremacist lies that suggest black people are killing white people? Well, let me think. This is the same administration that has gutted civil rights enforcement inside every single agency in this country and has done so based on an executive order where Donald Trump has claimed that the greatest victims of civil rights violations are white men. He has actually said that he will take away temporary protective status, including from Afghanis who fought alongside with and supported and translated for American troops in Afghanistan, but yet he will revoke temporary protective status. But who can be deemed a refugee? Some white Afrikaners from South Africa. So I think this is not embarrassment. I think the question is, what is the consistent through point on propaganda coming out of this administration so that it can do its corruption? It drives racism. It drives fear. It tries to divide people against one another and suggest, don't look over here at Starlink, or don't look over here at my real estate deals in other parts of the world. And if you remember, Cyril Ramaphosa himself said, sorry, I can't give you a $400 million check. This is what
he was very calm, actually. He clearly was ready for the element of spectacle there.
And the attack, not just spectacle.
Right.
Yinka, I'm curious if you can remind our viewers of some of the history here, too, in South Africa specifically. This community, the Afrikaners, they're about a single-digit percentage point of the population, but they own almost 80% of the land. Well, but black people make up the vast majority of South Africa.
81%.
Yes. Tell us a bit about the history and how things got to this point.
Well, I mean, I guess Afrikaners, descendants of Dutch migrants, got there 300 plus years ago, settled, eventually over time, claimed land, claimed minerals, claimed farms for themselves. And that went on for years into the 20th century. And then we had 46 years of an apartheid rule and total control of the country.
Minority control.
Minority control. The nation obviously became a pariah state with most reasonable countries of the world. Part of that history is that the United States was not always on the right side of history, but eventually got there. And
with a little help from a whole lot of college students.
Exactly. Lots of college students, lots of protests, the kinds of protests that are trying to be stopped today. And Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 27 years, comes out, becomes this hero to the world.
The U.S. considered a terrorist at one point.
At one point, a terrorist. So, this is all people, we kind of vaguely know all this important history. South Africa, like I said, has very unique history because it's so recent in historical terms.
You brought up a really interesting point about the politics of South Africa today as this kind of state on the national, international level that is defying a little bit the United States. It's not as subservient, if you will, as other countries. And the United States has had major beef with South Africa because of the positions it has taken at the ICC against Israel.
Exactly. And if you think about it, right, even Cyril Ramaphosa, even though he was much younger then, these were people in government today were part of the anti-apartheid movement, right? So for them to just sort of throw that out and suddenly just pretend, Palestine, the leaders, PLO as it was then, they supported their movement. So they can't, it would be too difficult for them to just walk away from this.
So I lived in South Africa and did criminal justice work there for a couple of years. And it was 5 years after the end of apartheid in the first democratic presidency of the country, and the first time black people got to run the country. Let me tell you what was happening with land reform and with crime. The unemployment rate for the black community was functionally 50%, and it was 85% of the population. The country was crippled with debt that had been accumulated because of the fight against apartheid. And when the African National Congress asked the world, asked the global powers that be, forgive our debt so we can invest it in our people, they said, no, you got to pay us back with interest. All of the disinvestments, that land, like 10%, 11% of the land in South Africa can be farmed. It is mostly not an arable country. And what happened to black people on land was they were violently thrown off it and put into essentially communities that our indigenous people in this country would say, we know what reservations look like. That what Bantustans were separating people from economic opportunity. They were separating people often even from access to any of the industrialized centers of the country solely because of the color of their skin. And Donald Trump in the 1990s, what he said when all the news stories started coming out about the browning of America, about how diverse it was becoming, you know what his comment was? We will not be South Africa. By which he was referring to black people's rule.
Full circle moment, it sounds like, Maya.
Yinka, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you, Yinka.
Maya, please stick around.